Hello, everybody. I think it's live. Um, I'm just gonna wait to come on and ask if the sound's alright, videos are okay, anything needs to be updated. Maybe I will tag some people in the comments while we wait to get started. Since we have a few people on with us, I will explain a little bit about who I am and why we're here. I do what I do, and what this masterclass is about, and yeah, okay, things. I have this nice, very sunny top on today. I would have put something else on, but it's way, way, way too hot. So I never got around to doing that. And yeah, it's just I've had the week of moving, been from a place where it was a lot of nature, camping, no internet, no electricity. Now I'm somewhere where there is internet and electricity, and things can, suppose, continue or develop along with these masterclasses from there. I will be doing posts about the last 3 months in April. Find that scheduling content for 3 months prior is easy for me, so then I can update everybody about the winter solstice to the spring equinox, during the spring equinox to the summer solstice. Rather than posting every day, I can schedule it and just get on with it. So, yeah, just send a message to let people know that it's live. And I'll give it about 2 more minutes. People who said they will be attending the live, and there are other people who said that they will catch the replay. So we will give those people who plan to be here live an opportunity to come on. So for anybody who's watching this on the replay, my name is Serafina Marasha, and I am a neurodivergence, Destress, and empowerment guide and mentor. And I am a person with neurodivergences, autism, ADHD, SPD, specific sensory processing differences, SLD, specific learning differences, as well as other neurodivergences. And I have always been on the journey of finding solutions and working with others to find solutions together, or to help each other, support each other in a conscious way, in a by choice, so not in a forced way, in a communal way. So as you support each other in a family, support each other in a mutually indispensable, as I sometimes call it, no strings attached, service to other way. So here I help. My business is all about helping neurodivergents to address and empower themselves and co-create, unlock powerful, transformative, lifelong. I see there are 2 people on. I should check to tag people. Welcome. I'm just talking a little bit about me and the work that I do while I wait for people to come on. So helping neurodivergents to unlock and empower themselves to make changes. So, why do I do what I do? I suppose there's lots of things that, uh, lots of reasons why, and the main reason for me really is because it's what growing up, I would have loved to have a guide like this, or mentorship like this, as well as to uh, enable or to continue the communities forming around working on ourselves and being in taking action, not in isolation. So yeah, this might be a little bit uh, heat heat stricken rambling to begin with. That's okay, because there's going to be many more masterclasses to come, workshops and masterclasses, and many more opportunities for you to come to grips with um, what we cover here in this masterclass. So today we are looking at being, specifically to for three primary purposes. To stop hindering our natural way of being is the main purpose, and then supplementary to that is to de-stress and empower natural ways of being, and then to embrace our natural way of being. And alongside that, on that journey, we are able to co-create and become. Um, so choosing where to go in our natural way of being. So first, I'm going to hop over and say hi in Facebook comments. Um, yeah, this chapter is a very dense chapter compared to in the guidebook. Compared to the first chapter, I feel like the first chapter is very light, and then light and like not too deep. Important though. But when it comes to this chapter, it's the work is definitely much more looking at our traits and our personalities and our beliefs in more detail. So I tried to make this interactive masterclass as light as and not as overwhelming, because I feel like through all the equations, put some pictures of the equations or the photographs that went along with this chapter, especially if you haven't watched the Strengths and Superpowers one, it would be overwhelming, too much TMI, too much information. So I literally stripped it down to 2 pages, or 2 or 3 pages. And then after getting feedback from people who watched this first masterclass, then if you're interested in going deeper into the being work, as I now and my clients call it, then you can request to come along to some of the more intense and in-depth masterclass. So let's see, we have 2 people on. I'm going over to add people in the comments, and just to say that I'm live. Yeah, so if you're tuning in live, then put hashtag live and just say where you are joining in from, which part of the world you are joining in from, and what you expect to get out of this masterclass. And as I mentioned, it's like, are you looking to get to know yourself better, or to be something, like to work on yourself to change, like a habit you have, a belief that you have, to work on an experience that you had, because this goes into trauma work as well. The main thing is the traits, the character traits, personality traits, the beliefs, mindset, the experiences, as well as the skills and the passions that you have. Um, and briefly, just to explain that, I've there are 3 sections. So there's there's personal being, interpersonal being, and professional being, which helps to address your life in a way that is not like um, you're not one isolated, uh, for lack of a better term, person. You have different aspects of yourself that you um, work on or are required to have as part of a community of. Hey, see, Alexandra. Hello, Alexandra. Yeah. So as you grow and um, you, like when you're younger, interpersonal and professional being is not that significant, if you will, and then interpersonal starts coming into play in your teenage years, and we talk about socializing, bullying, and some examples of that a little bit in this book and a lot of other materials around social development as well cover this. And we talk about the professional life and employment being in um, networking if you are in career development or you are in enterprise or business. Um, and yeah, um, those are the main three areas of being that we look at. That doesn't mean they're disconnected. It's just how to apply our natural way of being to those three areas. So I'm going to go ahead and the next masterclass, I am planning to have somebody doing the moderation behind the scenes. So um, things will be a little bit smoother. I'm really enjoying preparing for and uh, doing these master classes right now. It's great to be able to share this with you. So yeah, say I'm gonna. I think there's just one more place I need. Yeah. That's the one. Um, there we are. Thank you for your patience as I both moderate the dashboard and chair the meeting, chair the masterclass, I should say. Um, right, and then I'm going to share my screen and go into the workbook. Again, have a pen and paper. I really recommend, especially for this one, to have a pen and paper because I'm going to be showing less on the screen. I might, if you have a question related to what I'm talking about, then I'm able to share different things on the screen to highlight those questions and points. But I want the foundations of this chapter to be the main thing that you take away at the end of this workshop, and not to worry too much about the extra work that is potentially required if you choose to uh, really take on this going down your natural European. Okay, so that's everybody. Later on, I'll tag people for the replay. Anybody who can't make it live. There we are. Right, that's 15 minutes of introductions. I think that's a good place to start. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here to share my. Will it let me share my screen? Yes. That one is fine. Again, make sure you have a notebook and pen, or like if you're watching this in replay, come back with a notebook and pen because, yeah, I'm gonna go real slow so you can write things down and ask questions. Um, just because following, I've made it as easy to follow as possible. However, I know that we are all at different um, places. Maybe some of us are like just woken up, and maybe some of us are getting ready for bed soon. So get a cup of tea, sit in a place where you can focus, and let's get stuck in. Mm, okay, so share. Yeah, I think, yep, that's sure. And let me know you can hear me okay, wherever you are. Might be a connection issue. Uh, it's just so I'm aware and I don't keep talking. um, okay, so I go over here. I don't know if it's on the right page. Wait for it to load. I have to refresh the page. There we are. Maybe I should put some music in the background, like elevator music, while we wait for the page to load or refresh. Um, wait, let me try putting in the link again. I'm going to share the presentation on Canva. So, okay, so yeah, I'm still here. Maybe if we start all over from Canva, to deactivate the screen. Back. In the meantime, maybe I'll like throw out a question from the book. It's like a preliminary question, so um, you can start working on the. I can turn that off. Start sharing on some of artists with being. Um, think of it as a pre-masterclass exercise. Uh, so, a question that we can answer is when did I experience a natural state of being? You don't have to share this in the comments if you don't want to. I invite you to if you feel comfortable sharing this in the comments. Um, so try maybe like 3 to 7 sentences. If you're journaling with a pen and paper, um, or in your phone, in your notebook, wherever you're journaling, um, just write a little bit about when you felt in a. Some people call it a flow state. Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen and then refresh the page completely. No, has it stopped? Yes. Yeah, so as I was saying, like some people call it a flow state, some people experience it as like a spiritual awakening. Whatever terms you use for being in a place where you feel that this is your natural state of being, um, and you feel like you feel. The simplest way I'm going to say it is courageous and confident. You feel embodied. You feel conscious, aware, mindful. You feel like you. That's another way of expressing the our natural way of being. Like I feel like myself. and I don't feel like myself, as a way of expressing um, being dissociated or being not integrated, disintegrated, fragmented from your source or your way of being. Okay, so this is still loading, so I'm going to open it in a new window. So write, you can say a time. So just start with a time when I felt in my natural way of being was dot dot dot, and then answer. So I'll just put on 3 minutes for you to answer that. If you want to write more in detail, in the meantime, I'll be refreshing this. And if you have any questions about this exercise as well, just write down in the comments. I could see them on my phone. I'm just opening up a new tab and putting the Canva presentation in a new tab. That's so I'm still here. I've got my very herbal cafe with calendula and lemongrass. Yes, very nice. I also have calendula marigold. I also have a notebook. I'm not taking notes because as I read what I've written, I get more things I want to write. So it helps. So if you see me writing away on the phone, I'm also going through the workbook with you, doing it together. Okay. I think it's back. I think we can start. Right, so I'm going to start sharing this presentation up and then share the screen. This is also available on replay on YouTube, just if anybody is interested in the links for the different ways to access these masterclasses in the Facebook group, which from April the 2nd will be active because I plan is to release the guidebooks and worksheets, workbooks that we cover in these masterclasses in the private Facebook group by April the 2nd, and the pre-order for the books April the 2nd as well. So I will leave a link to join the group in the comments of the masterclasses here on my personal page, and yeah, hopefully we can go over there and get work together on these very important, I suppose, and fun as well, fun things to work on. Okay, so now I can share the presentation. Yeah. Now I'm going to share the screen. Standard. Yeah, I have to disconnect something. I don't know what though. Okay. Again, here. Minor technical difficulties. This is I have a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth mouse and keyboard, and sometimes they make my the activity of my tablet very peculiar, for lack of a better term. Um, so I've restarted my phone, but it still seems to be uh, being peculiar. Um, which is very interesting to work with. Um, I think it's if I do it in small. Okay, exit. If I press that one. Okay, I'm just going to share on the small version because you don't need the full version if there's no. Uh, if you guys can see it, that's me. There we are. Here, yes. Zoom in. The small version doesn't jump around. You can mute me by the way if you're doing the exercise and you don't to me. And the timer is nearly how do I get rid of this part? Comment? Can I delete it? Okay, cancel. Never mind. Yeah, we'll just do it like this. Okay. Slow start, but we still have enough time to cover the updated version of this. So, here we are, screen share. Um, I'm just letting people know who are asking where to view the masterclass. There it is. And then ready to screen share. There we are. Screen. This will be interesting. I think it'll be easier. Thank you for your patience. Now, if you've done the exercise and put it in the comments, um, this will. Hey, thank you, Alexandra. This is a good time to share if you're watching the replay. And I will come back uh, after I worked through the short. Like I say, it's much shorter than last week's anyway, and much more relaxed. But if you want to see the longer version, for lack of a better term, you can. Just probably not today because this is 90 minutes, but you can, and you can see like I've kind of read through it and scribbled all these nice, beautiful notes and things to mention, and nice words and formulas because I like systems and I like formulas, and if you see the cycles and workflows and all the different systems that I kind of like, I have like a visual representation of. You kind of understand how I work with things. Obsidian is a very good app for that. Okay, so from step one, this is step two in the undiagnosed framework, but roadmap and framework and roadmap. So the guidebook provides a framework, and the workbook is a roadmap, and that's a very engineering phrases or terms. I just say it's a journey, an adventure that we go on, and um, I find it much more easier to think step by step. The steps can be done in different orders. If for the first time you're doing it, I do recommend doing it in. I did it in the order that it's written in, and when I work with my clients, I do it in the order that it's written in. However, once you've worked it once, you can kind of see in your life where you need to add and jump around. And this step is like putting cement, like you put bricks. So strength and superpowers are like building, putting the bricks. But this is like the cement in between the bricks that holds the the step 0 and step 1 together, because this is like getting to the core of your challenges, your needs, your abilities, weaknesses, as well as your strengths and superpowers, in a way that is accessible, like not jolting, shocking, like manageable. I think that's the simplest way to put it. So you can see this on the screen. It says, so there's a quote from a book called Being Myself, which is a meditation on being. And it says, Being myself is the ever present factor in all changing experience. And just for the nature of, because of the nature of experience, if you remember, we had experience in strengths and superpowers. Um, and experiences came up twice. So in courage, I will go back up because now it can explain. Now you can kind of refresh our memory, if you will. So here we had like a expression for courage, or statement, it's an experience statement. So I either call it a statement or an expression. Courage equals traits and it's plus experiences plus beliefs, and confidence equals skills plus experiences plus passions. Experiences come up twice there, and that's um, a good thing to note because sometimes I write it as experiences squared. In one, if you want to deep dive into more complicated expression, you you will kind of see how the expressions connect with each other. So this highlights the fact, this quote I like because it highlights the fact experiences change, and this expression of being also takes that into account. Um, from step 1, you remember courage equals traits and experiences and beliefs, and competence equals skills and experiences and passions. So there's some other terms that we used as well, such as fear and stress. Like we didn't really we had like one sentence to explain each of these variables: traits, experiences, beliefs, skills, and passions. I'm going to use the pointer if it'll let me, so that you can see where I'm looking at in the book. Um, yeah, so we in when we talk in future part of this undiagnosed, and also in Destress, Reset, and Empower, the definitions, like we talk about emotions and different traits, and um, how skills, passions, fear, and stress can both fit into that. Um, they're not like, for now, just use your definitions of these things. I'm sure we all have very um, an understanding or meaning for the words passions or skills or fear and stress. I'm sure that brings up some connections for us. So just do it to your understanding, not like a right or wrong. This is for you and your narrative. Um, and um, this is like for the purposes of learning and working and sharing it. Um, so on being, um, yeah. our narratives and our stories and our experiences, um, our uh, traits as well, in some sense. These all help to shape us, and we are also shaped by them. And our natural way of being is a combination of factors. So I start here from courage, because courage is part of our natural way of being, as our strengths. So we need courage to stop hindering our natural way of being, because we will, especially as neurodivergence, for example, if you have autism spectrum disorder, I'm seeing in the corner. Sorry, yeah. Just checking, like if I go to face on the screen, if it will change as well. It's not locked. So if you have autism spectrum disorder, for example, just on this need and courage, or if you have sensory processing disorder, or even specific disorder, um, I use differences, disorder, conditions interchangeably, just for ease of expression. It's um, a really a really difficult thing to express for autistics, anyone on the spectrum, for sensory processing or specific learning, or ADHD, for example. So certain neurodivergences more than others, especially along the continuum. It's really difficult to express how uh, how existing feels to somebody who might not experience it the way you do, or especially to, um, and I suppose neurotypicals, but to somebody who doesn't have the same neurodivergences as you. I give the example of there's a really good book called The Spectrum Girl Survival Guide, and there's also a workbook that goes along with that. It's for teenagers, and in there she talks about how she, like, how much courage it takes for her to um, to get up and get out of the house. The onslaught of cars, sound, sensory input, um, and who touches her, and just like the anxiety, the not wanting to be there, the routine being upset as it come along, and a part of the parcel of autism spectrum disorder, for example. Me with dyspraxia, for coordination issues, like for cleaning, for cooking, for all these things I need to do on a daily basis. And there's other things alongside that, like um, um, uh, it's sort of aphantasia. So I'll explain what these terms mean in the comments, or if you want to ask specifically what a term means, do so in the comments, because the lexicon of neurodiverse terms is ever expanding, and while some can be useful, I think um, not everybody maybe always uses the same terms or is familiar with every term, so that's completely fine if I say something and you've never heard it heard of it before. Um, yeah, so for me to cook a meal, first of all, it takes me 3 times the length of time that it would take somebody possibly who isn't dyspraxic. So if I'm cooking for myself, I keep it simple and I keep it nutritious, and I actually prefer like raw or not overcooked, mildly cooked warm foods over you know complicated food. I prefer nutrition and health over, say, something that looks good or like something that's traditional. Um, However, when I am with my family or with other communities, I do make standard meals like rice and curry, pizza, pies, and whatnot. Um, However, if I know that lunch will be at like 1 or 1:30, I will start cooking at 10:30, sometimes even 9 o'clock, because it's like, and I like to have like ingredients, recipes. I like to have the kitchen empty. I'm the only one in the kitchen because I will drop everything, even feeding like when I'm eating. Um, I will eat with both. I'm ambidextrous, so I will switch between having the knife and fork in one hand and the other. Um, I will not be able to calculate how many things to hold in my hand so that I don't drop something. Or even if I'm only holding one item, I will not be able to calculate how much muscle force to apply to this item so that it stays in my hands or within my grip. Um, and to, yeah, just things like that, bumping into objects. So this is just talking about the courage it takes to just allow, I suppose, or to accept that these are just part of my existence, and that's fine, that's okay. Like, to organize for me is difficult. To tidy things for me is difficult. To remember certain things, especially calendars. I have like one major calendar system that I use, and it's not like I'm still working at making it better, because I'm like, okay, I need to. This is something that I'm determined as soon as possible by June this year. My calendar and time management systems are going to be at least 1% better every day, up to about like 80 or 85% of efficiency. So it's really difficult to express some of these things in a way that makes sense to. Maybe intuitively they get it, but logically it doesn't make sense to somebody who doesn't experience neurodivergences like this. Like, because for them it's normal to be able to do 33 things at once and still um, not have a meltdown or breakdown. Yeah, so there are also things like masking with autism, and camouflaging, like imitating other people, and then you mask for so long that then you kind of forget who what matters for you, because you're all the time. Um, this is more so in female or autistic uh, females than males. However, even in males, there is a certain degree of masking and camouflaging, or whichever term you use. Um, as well as like alexithymia, which is considered a trait. So traits impact our being, as if you remember that courage is traits, experiences, and beliefs. And in trait theory or disposition theory in psychology, there is the big five personality traits that you can find where you are on the spectrum of those personality traits. Um, Online. I mentioned it in the previous masterclass. Um, and you can remember them by the term ocean. So ocean stands for openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So maybe I'll get a whiteboard up, and let me know actually in the comments if you would like me to get a whiteboard up as I'm talking about this, so that we can have an interactive masterclass. Yeah, I'm gonna start doing that anyway. Um, and then I have it if I need it. So let me get my link from my whiteboard now. Anyway, I'll come back to that because it's useful. What's my whiteboard got? I have two. But I can't remember which one I started with this. Anyway, for future preview for future masterclasses, there'll be interactive whiteboards. Um, yeah, so we need once we start like hindering our natural way of being. So, and for this is like trauma. Say if you grew up in a dysfunctional family, I consider trauma to acquired neurodivergences. Um, and somebody asked me a question. I'm going to repeat this again at the end of the workshop. What is a superpower? And I consider a superpower to be uh, an acquired strength, like a unique acquired strength, um, that through effort and choice, like you acquired it through effort and choice, um, which is why I it's equated in this book with confidence, with skills, experiences, and passion, and then that becomes a superpower. So, whereas strength is something like a talent, something you're born with, and yes, it takes courage to recognize and acknowledge and use it, but with um, with the superpower, it's skills, experiences, and passion. So it's an acquired strength through effort and choice, not like a natural strength. And that will help me some other things that follow from that from that pretext. Um, Acquired is uh, like traumatic, so complex post-traumatic disorder or like borderline personality disorders. You know, all these antisocial personality disorders and so on and so forth. So sometimes I refer to them collectively as acquired neurodivergences, and then there's innate, or I suppose if we're talking for some developmental disorders, they call them congenital conditions. Usually, I use the word innate. However, if you hear me say congenital, I'm referring like more or less to the same thing. So, from trauma, it's really difficult to once you start. So, trauma hinders your natural way of being, um, and um, it's really difficult to climb your way back to your natural way of being once you're like you start going down a spiral, a downward spiral, down into the abyss. And perfectionism is another trait that is related to that hinders your natural way of being, or my natural way of being can do. Rigidity. Um, there's a really good book, Fear of the Abyss, and that goes into detail on working through perfectionism. Um, and there's so many good resources out there, and so many good communities that um, support us, or can, if we allow them to, support us to be really. There's a note on being versus non-being, um, or unbeing, um, that is. Um, I want to mention it here, I suppose. So the main difference, like in being, in unbeing or non-being, is cowardliness. So if what's the opposite of courage? Courage, if to continue, like to stop hindering our natural way of being, takes courage. To hinder our natural way of being is a form of it's a fear and stress response related to. I try to keep the C for alliterations reasons, cowardliness, but it's related to like wanting to isolate ourselves, wanting to not be, to not exist, um, and either way, actually, it's not easy. It's just, I think, feel it's more difficult um, to make the choice and then to actually um, climb back to your natural way of being. Um, yeah, I'll leave it at there for that point. And then the next thing I noted here is that confidence is needed, and it takes confidence to embrace and to empower natural way of being. Um, yeah, so to de-stress our natural way of being, um, yeah, it takes courage and confidence. I mentioned the last masterclass about how um, to increase our ability to de-stress. It's essential to increase our capacity or ability to be stressed. um, so um, I suppose that to increase our capacity to stop hindering our natural being, it's important to increase our capacity to embrace our natural being. Um, that's that's um, that's uh, part of like learning. I know there's an expression about knowing, so like theoretical learning and knowing, and practical, experiential, empirical learning and knowing and doing, or like um, knowledge applied and wisdom, um, and how like when you know something, it's embodied, like it's experienced, and you can't not know it in 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 this in the bodies of that you know them in. Um, yeah. So, for example, like once you've learned how to do a cartwheel, um, and you can do it, if you have mastery over doing a cartwheel, especially if you learn it when you're younger, um, it's very difficult unless you have like a serious injury to unlearn to do a cartwheel. That's the most practical example for the physical body. That it's an embodied experience, um, and you know, like you are um, that experience is like becomes something that adds to your experience of your natural way of being, um, through knowing. But sometimes, like when you read, I read a lot, um, and I know that I can read from here until the cows come home, and my natural way of being will have not experienced any change because that's theoretical knowing and it's not embodied. Um, and it's important to note like that knowledge and wisdom, and how we can know one thing in our heads or in one body, but not all our bodies. And they're like there are four bodies. I don't know if it's worth me switching to this. No, so actually, I'll stick with this screen. If anybody wants more, I'm not sure who's on the live, but if anybody hops onto the live or is in the replay and wants more references, if you're able to put a timestamp and then just like ask your question or ask what reference you would like, I am, pardon, pardon me, I am more than happy to share different references. I just didn't want to be jumping around. You see how tech was and setting up and getting the presentation up. So I don't want to be jumping around. And I think the majority of the, um, I can't get this comment thing to go away. Let me try now. Um, this is just the name of my company. When I make comments, it says that, yeah, it's very difficult to, um, sometimes like you lie to yourself about your natural way of being because you read something. Um, and in Destress, Reset, and Empower, I talk about different ways to train all the bodies. So not just the mental body, our intellectual body, um, for the purpose of connecting with being and you know working with being. And these include things like visualizations and movement exercises and so on and so forth. It's relevant to this, so I'm just plugging that in here. Uh, okay, so while I'm on the topic of bodies, I'm just going to talk about like the four bodies that we have. So four, there is a being equation, and I mentioned the book here, the being equation, and In the guidebook, I will put the equation in the comments. I have a screenshot of the equation. Actually, I'll do that now. I have a screenshot of the equation. Um, I just want to talk about the equation before I talk about this context expression on the screen because I see that there's it's a good thing in there. I'm like, oh, consciousness. Um, yeah, I'm going to talk about the. Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, stop everything. I'm just not doing anything because I know that it's going to start complaining. Hey, all right, let's go back to here. I think it's because of the heat in Mexico. Here it's quite hot. Um, Sometimes it's just like, like it's too hot for me. Like I feel you. Um, so I digress. There, um, just returning to here. I'll put in the comments references to what's mentioned here. Go to here. So the the book, the being equation, it does outline an equation for being, which I'm putting a photo in the comments, just so you guys can reference it as I discuss it, rather than me using the screen that I'm sharing. Okay, so in this book, this book, the book, The Being Equation, it talks about an equation for being, which, if you're not somebody who studied physics, mathematical physics, past, say, A levels in the UK or past, I did physics and mathematical physics. I think it's AP maths, they call it in America, but high school level. Um, then you might look at this equation and think, what on earth is, like, um, what is this trying to say? Um, Essentially, what the equation expresses is the fact that uh, being, as a function of time or dependent on time in the book, the being equation, um, is as a result of the spiritual body, the physical body, inputs that we get from the environment, life events, and egoic interpretations. So it's not letting me share a photo. What I'll do is I'll just I'll add it after and then put in here the equation, tag it in the comments. Okay, so I'm going to switch to my book, Eric Hardy. Yeah, so it says that I know I'm on the little screen. If you want to see it on the bigger screen, then I can just deactivate this. Stop sharing. Then I don't know how light it is. I'm also going to read from a little bit from the book. It might be easier if I just share from the book directly. Okay, so I'm going to isolate what we're looking at. If you look at here, spirit, there's the equation here. Being as a function of time is spirit body, physical body, inputs, life events, and egoic interpretations. So I know there's like a whole lot, there's so much going on that page that you might just look at that and think, what? If you can if you can keep that interpretation in mind, or you can also go on Kindle and read a sample. If you go on Amazon or Kindle, read a sample of the book. That equation is in the book sample, and you can see it more clearly later when it lets me post photos in the comments. I will put a photo, screenshot of the book for everybody to reference. So I just took a little bit of time to explain that for the reasons of in the body, now body, I'm looking at the time because I want to go on to professional, personal, and interpersonal being for the last 20 minutes or so. Um, these are um, levels at which being express themselves. So I was mentioning like the four bodies. The names of the bodies are not relevant, but there are four different levels that these our being can and does express itself. And in this, it will come up now on the screen because I'm here. Um, in this context formula, it's consciousness. So these four bodies I refer to as consciousness. So different levels of consciousness. And that is astral consciousness, psychic consciousness, physical consciousness, and soul, spirit, genetic consciousness. Um, and this is why I'm referring to the being equation, because this this being equation. Let me get the mouse back. This being equation, as expressed here, also correlates with the being equation in the book, um, uh, as expressed in the being equation book. And I the same with the Spectrum Girl Survival Guide and Workbook. I started writing Undiagnosed, and then I read the Spectrum Girl Survival Guide and Workbook and the Being Equation, um, and then I was seeing and other books as well, or other sources. I will link resources in the comments as well. And that was like uh, I could see like correlations or connection, and I don't know if it's like, I'm not saying it's the ultimate truth. I was just happy to see that it worked. It worked for me, or is working for me, and is working for others when they reach out. And happy to see that other people have found basically saying the same thing in different ways. Um, and then the inputs, life events, and egoic interpretation part of the being equation in the book. Um, I consider that cues. Yes, the function part. Now they talk, in the being equation, it talks about time and being as a function of time. I put context because it's there for interpretation, especially if there is a timelessness experience of timelessness. Somebody might feel time or experience that time doesn't, nobody experiences time the same way. So I just put context for the specific environment or situation. Um, and then further down here, um, so we mentioned here traits, experiences, beliefs, skills, experiences, and passions. Um, some of these can be, we can consider them cues. It can be hard to separate context from courage and confidence, which is why I like writing it this way, because then it's like asking yourself, well, what am I personally responsible for, or what do I have personal ownership for, or accountability for, and what is just like life happening, life events, or just environmental input. Um, it's kind of like the difference between what we can control, what we have control over, and what we have no control over. Cues, the term cues, I mentioned a book in the last masterclass, and um, I have like a backlog of resources to share. Don't worry, they'll all be in the private Facebook group. I've made notes of them. Um, Vanessa Van Edwards, in her book Cues, I found that word to be the most appropriate word because we communicate with each other with cues. With other people, the external environment gives us cues, or you know, synchronous events or messages. Like a bit like in the theater or in a movie, like you have cue cards, something in the environment or something when communicating or connecting or some interdependent dynamic is taking place. There's like cues and signal um, in between the two subjects. Um, so I like the term cues. I think it's like really appropriate to apply here because it helps to explain inputs from the environment and life events and egoic interpretations. Um, and how important as I mentioned, our narratives, our stories, and beliefs are for cueing the environment as well as the environment for cueing our narratives, stories, and beliefs and experiences. So there is both a top-down and a bottom-up approach. But what I mean by that is you work from the uh, cues up to your consciousness. So if this is like the bottom, so consciousness is like spirit, but they're at the bodies, the higher bodies. And egoic interpretation is like the bottom. If you think of it as a spectrum, but kind of like a spectrum of um, um, once you get to a certain point, you change the name of that spectrum. I'll put a diagram for that up. So we can work from our interpretations, our egoic interpretations, back through our life events, back to our input, um, working our way up now. So starting from a bottom-up approach, back up to our consciousness, our physical body, all our bodies, um, psychic body, astral body, soul spirit, genetic body. When we're working through context and being. So there's no one way to do this. Or we can work down from spirit, from consciousness, um, from all our bodies, to the inputs, to life events, and to evoke interpretations. So when I said that this chapter is really lengthy, and I just want to focus on this page and explain in this page, you can see now what I mean because um, if everything I've just mentioned was written down here, you'd look at the page and say like, that's too many words, probably. Especially if your attention span is not the strong. So an equation for being can be expressed as, or an expression for being, and a statement for being can be expressed as being equals courage plus confidence plus context. Um, yeah. So the courage part is like, who we have been, where we have been, what we have been, how we have been, why we have been, as well as how we are now naturally. Um, as I mentioned here, and then to embrace and empower a natural way of being or way of being is the car is comes to life here in co-creating and becoming, or I suppose aligning with our future selves. So if we think this like past and present, it can also be future. Obviously, like I say, these communicate quite um, non-linearly. So I'm not like putting in a box in terms of like uh, who comes first, or who did it. It's just a way to, if your mind is having a bit of a hard time understanding courage, confidence, and context, then think of it like past and present being or me, self, um, present and future self for confidence, so for past and present self. And then context is the uh, ever uh, ever present factor in all of your um, change in experience. So there's being, and then there's being myself, or as this equation says, being is as it's expressed as dependent on the function of time, or as dependent on time. But then if we take away the time dependence, which is why we're talking on past self and present self and future self, then we have being. So if you're ever wondering, together with the Strengths and Superpowers Masterclass last week that you can catch on, um, you can still catch, I'm pretty sure it's on my personal profile. If you ever, I've done it again, scroll down, let's go back to the page. If you do want to catch that Strength and Superpowers Masterclass to kind of look at the courage and confidence, you see there, we kind of alluded to the fact that they do work together here. Um, then you can come to this being experience without feeling like you're going to be hit over the head and overwhelmed with information, because it's kind of why I put the strength and superpowers first, because if we're going to look at um, our narratives, say our beliefs, um, in a way that kind of make us feel terrible, try not to say the S word. um, I want us not to lose sight of like like the I want to say context, but not to lose sight of like that there is good and there is positive and it's not all doom and gloom, because the being part can feel like mission impossible. Say for example myself, I would love to. Um, I suppose independence is a part of it. But there's other elements of dependencies and interdependencies. I do prefer interdependencies where I am reliable and I am able to rely on others. Um, I would just like to do research and editorial work, and this is a very autistic females thing. So we just like to not always work in isolation. I sometimes like to work with people. Um, But to be on the sidelines and do research, like if you lock me up in the library, in the right library with the right books, I'd be perfectly happy to like um, to connect between, get all the information from books and um, I also really like crafts. I like making things and art and music, um, and just having like a divergent mind, which is like part of like different way of being. Um, yeah. So I just want to quickly mention before moving on to personal, professional, and interpersonal being. A little bit about. So I mentioned the Big Five personality test. So the main two, when we look at traits, I'm not going to talk about beliefs or experiences or skills or passions in much detail, but I do want to talk about traits because character and character development is a huge part of being, and there's um, or discovering, I should say, to stop hindering our natural being, which is what this chapter is about. The courage to, I suppose, in the Serenity Prayer, the courage to change the things we can, but to um, become aware of our experiences, our beliefs, and our traits. Um, this is like the core. I write here at the bottom, hindering our natural being. We need to be aware of our natural being, and that's the past, present, out, the courage. Everything is doing funny things. So to empower and embrace and to de-stress our natural being, we need all of the above. Um, Traits. There is something called the EPQ, the Async Personality Questionnaire. I'll write more about this I'll share more information in the group and all relevant places, and you can ask some questions if you have about it. So it talks about psychoticism. It talks about the different. It talks about personality traits and character traits in a different way to the Big Five. So I like these two because the Big Five, it talks about personality traits and character traits in terms of nervous system and brain areas. So also neurological, neuroanatomical, anatomically and physiologically, but more on a epigenetic basis. So the EPQ talks more about physiology and genetics, or the Einstein personality questionnaire. It's more about physiology and genetics, so it's more like very past. Whereas the Big Five is more anatomy and epigenetics. I go more into more details when doing personality or trait assessments with for myself or when working with people. And psychoticism, I also call psychicism, but it can be a healthy psychicism or it can be an unhealthy psychicism. It can also be a form of animism, but I use the acronym PEN. So for the Big Five, Ocean. For the EPQ, PEN. P is for psychoticism or psychicism. E is for emotional stability. Oh, no, wait. E is for extroversion, extroversion, introversion. These are all on the spectrum. I'm actually going to put this up on here so then you can see what I'm talking about. And then N is for neuroticism. So if I type in here, will it let me EPQ? Okay, it's going to be, we're going to get there. I'm determined to share at least this. EPQ. And then I go to images. So it's on a spectrum. Okay, extended project qualification. Different EPQ. Aim, sync, personality. We're just going to quickly do this and then we'll talk about personal, professional, and interpersonal being. I have allowed 1 hour, up to 1 hour for question time. If there are no questions, I will just continue with the masterclass or I will address previous questions. This is an AA question format as well as FAQ or AMA, but AA. AA means ask anything, and I can answer it, and I also invite other participants who feel like they would like to in the comments to offer an answer, to say I'd like to offer an answer. Don't just go ahead and offer the answer, but ask if the person would like a different perspective. So it's an ask anything section. So ANSIC personality questionnaire. But if I can address it if there are questions in the live. We are gonna go into the workbook. There's some to answer. It's only one page, which is why I say like the main material is a lot meatier. The actual workbook summary, at least for the first edition, and the second edition, it might be a lot bigger. Is not that much. So while the internet is sorting itself out, I'll come back to the trades. Is it going to allow trades? Yeah, again, traits. If you tuned in part of the way or missed some at the beginning, then or if you're watching the replay, I highly recommend you watching this from start to finish. Okay, so this is doing some happy crazy things. I'm going to let it do that and carry on. Just look it up. It's on a spectrum. Is it not happening? Yeah, it's like this, the wheel. And then depending on where you fall on the wheel, um, they call it like sanguine. I'm very bad at remembering words. There's this one with the words. Let's go to that one. Um, yeah, they call it like they have different names for it. You have like extroversion, introversion on one side, extrovert, introvert. Yeah, sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic. And then, pardon me again, different terms to express that. I think I had a detox, some fermented foods and raw garlic before I came into the masterclass. So please excuse my burps. um, yeah. So then you have neuroticism on one side to the other, and then extroversion on one side to the other, which is similar to the big five. But there's also psychotism. And then there's also this wheel of life. I don't know if these are other areas. This is an exercise that's also part of the work. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it's 8 to 12 sections. So 8 between 8 and 13 sections. So this is one that is useful. So um, related to different personalities. Okay, so now we finish up with. Well, I keep forgetting that it's a friendly good tech day. It's my tech is sick of the Sunday. Okay, so finally we look at um, personal being, professional being, interpersonal being. So if you followed along with kind of what I've expressed so far with context and with I don't know if this will let me do anything. Anyway, with context and being, then you will maybe intuitively be able to see where the personal, professional, interpersonal being is going. Um, Mostly the interpersonal being there, the cues part. It's kind of like you have experiences squared, which I mentioned before. When we add up the formula, there is cues squared. Which means it's basically interpersonally you have your cues, your interpretation, your egoic interpretation of what happened, your life events, and your input. And you also have, because you're not now in a interpersonal means like one-to-one or relationships when you're working with others. You also have their egoic interpretation, life events, input, um, and so on and so forth, as well as having their different bodies as well. So when I write down interpersonal being exercises or journaling prompts, um, there's always a part for what the other person might be experiencing, which is why I write the cues again. So I'm looking at here, yeah, courage plus confidence plus context plus cues. Um, so that's something important to highlight or note. Um, right, so quickly, I'm just going to explain what is personal being. Um, Shorter version. Personal being is courage plus context. Courage plus context. There's also confidence, where we are looking at personal development being, or growth in being. I should say that's like a different expression. The growth in being expression, or the personal growth in being expression, as well as the professional growth in being, or development, professional development in being, and the interpersonal development in being. So these are amendable depending on what you are or how you're working with being. For personal being, it's your past self and your present self. There is an element of confidence. Um, it's usually just not considered active. Um, in When you're considering personal being from the standpoint of um, the present, like pragmatically the present. So I'll just give an example of this and say like right now I'm sat in a chair. Um, Tomorrow there's a possibility I might be sitting in this same chair in the same place, or there's a possibility this chair might move and I might be sitting over there. So the context can change for that specific example. I'm not sure if you understand. Like, there's a realm of potentiality in the future that you haven't yet decided, which means that your being is not predetermined. I feel like it's quite philosophical, but if you another example which might help to make it, it's like um, who you say your traits, experiences, and your beliefs. Um, I don't know what I'm going to believe tomorrow. This is like a very broad example, or I don't know what I'm going to be experiencing tomorrow. For example, I have an idea or a plan, but I don't know for certain in the way that I've embodied it. So it's what's present. Professional being is usually about planning for the future and using our skills, our experiences, and our passions. And then for that reason, I've put professional being as confidence and context, and it seems to work quite well. And then interpersonal being as being all three, because as this book will go into more when we talk about tribes, when we are working with other people, we tend to plan for past, present, and future, or like to cover and discuss past, present, and future, whether that's professionally or personally. So interpersonal has courage and confidence and context. So yeah, that's a summary, which I've managed to do in 1 hour and 15 minutes or so, in about 75 to 90 minutes, which was a plan for Masterclass. Um, so the uh, some takeaways or some things that I would like to mention here, talking about being, personal being, professional being, and interpersonal being. Um, is So I want to mention some resources or some things that can help you or have helped me in I was talking about growth in being. So like networking. This helps with personal growth in being, and interpersonal growth in being. Um, I know that there's a lot of professional networks, but also to think about personal and interpersonal networks. Um, think of the way I express it is like our professional lives and our interpersonal lives and our personal lives are kind of a reflection of each other, reflection of each other, in the sense that as we work on one, the other is impacted as well. So as we become more centered and grounded in our personal being, our interpersonal being tends to also experience changes for the better, and our professional being also experiences change for the better. Professionally speaking, it's like finances. Where does money come from? Not, I'm not talking about the print machines. Money comes from other people. Say, for example, in a work, your boss, manager, job pays you, and that is other people. If you have a business or career, etc., salary, that also involves working with other people, freelance clients, um, managing our time. Um, so thinking of it like finances, time, and relationships, these are things that, um, like it or not, as a collective consciousness, we have the basis of our experiences and being on this level. And as we work on one aspect of our being, personal, professional, interpersonal, that impacts other aspects of our being. So as we improve our relationship with our partners, for example, it makes our professional lives easier because our home lives are easier, or with our families, or in our teams at work or in school. Um, and there is like a seven, seven. There's like a it's basically two, 3 steps, but you can look at them at these three different levels. So at the personal level, you have a plan and you reality and sense check that plan. I like the term reality check, sense check because they do differ. I will speak more about the difference in future. I'm just looking at the time. Or if there's more time and there's not many questions, I'll express more about reality checking and sense checking. Um, so on a personal level, we can have a plan for say if we're working on our traits, experiences, and beliefs, have a plan for working on that in growth and being, and then have a plan for working on the consciousness and cues. Um, or we can have a plan for, say, if we see a therapist or a psychologist, and they work a specific um, a specific modality, a specific therapy, for example, transaction analysis, or cognitive behavior therapy, or dialectical behavior therapy, or internal family systems. Uh, all of these are systems, and they have a plan. So in cognitive behavior therapy, you would track your thoughts, your feelings and emotions, and your actions, um, and so on and so forth. Transaction analysis, you would look at relationships and the specific roles, your interactions, the interactions that you have with people, um, you and those people play. And if you do need, say for example, you're in a place where you feel like uh, you can work, but finances are getting in the way, um, get in touch with me. I am not a licensed psychologist, counselor, well, talk therapist. Um, it's something that I am interested in doing one day. I have worked in the field of, I have and do work in the field of health and social sciences and health and social care. I am more of a mentor, coach, uh, and guide in the sense of like, okay, how can we get you to see a psychologist or therapist if that's what is needed? Is that what is needed? Um, Asking questions and creating a plan into like say if you're at the moment you're unemployed um, and say you're at the moment you have a substance abuse disorder or you are having interpersonal issues that's getting in the way of your ability for income and generating income or whatnot. um, with scholarships and sponsorships, what we can do is be like, and this relates to what I'm going to say next. I've mentioned for personal being, having a plan, and reality and sense checking that plan. Um, Next part is to communicate that plan with other people. So what I might be able to do is to say, okay, here are some organizations, and I will mention some that will help you at this time while you are not able to pay for, um, for the professional therapists or psychologists. Um, there's communicating the plan with other people. So say like you have a aim um, to improve in being, but you're lacking whatever resources. Um, we can get together and create a strategy or roadmap, just a map, uh, where we say like this is where we are, this is where we want to get to, and what are all the different ways like we do like up to seven because I like the number seven. No, because seven is a good number to be able to choose, and then pick the top three from that, and then to I'm gonna check if there's any questions just finishing this one, and then to reality and sense check those three um, to guide us with putting the plan into action. Um, we like measure them. measure them more than once. So we look at it like plan A, plan B. We have like a backup plan to that. Um, so rather than, just because something sounds like a good idea doesn't mean it is. So we double check and then we take action. So when it comes to interpersonal being, which is what I was just saying, um, the next two actually apply to both interpersonal and professional being because they involve other people much more. I would say whatever plan you make, it's best to just to check it with at least one other trusted person source, if not more. Like have a team of 3 to 7 people, or like look share with different groups, which is like hundreds of people then, um, about this plan and kind of test the feedback from reliable groups, relevant groups, not just any old group because they might not know the context under which you are, the under which you are asking uh, regarding the plan. I would recommend, yeah, if you are doing any kind of being work, to not do it. I recommend, but I'm not saying don't do it. Definitely don't do it. There is a time and a place where you find that uh, you have to be the one to take the courage first to take the first step, even if the plans aren't clear, especially in emergency and urgently important situations, um, where you might not be able to reach out to somebody in that instance. So the third part of it is to make a plan with other people. So rather than making the plan and then communicating it with other people professionally, the plan is made in groups and team meetings, and so this is like the one that relates to professionalism. You make a plan with other people, and then you reality and sense check it. However, it also relates to personal, and it can also relate to personal. So it's kind of like on levels, and they're not isolated. And then the last part, the seventh part to that, would be to put that plan into action because now you've reality and sense check those plans. Um, then you're able to put them into action. So as I mentioned, I wanted to share some resources for like personal growth in personal being as a neurodivergent, or growth in interpersonal being as a neurodivergent, or growth in professional being as a neurodivergent. Uh, yeah, there's a marriage and marriage counselor and social worker named Dori Zena, and she has a organization called Good Company, and they have free workshops and masterclasses and the ability to join in. And, they're mainly for autistic females. Um, however, I don't, from my experience with them and from, I'll share some more information in the link. Um, if whatever you're going through fits with what they offer support with, they don't specifically, like it, whether you self identify or self diagnose as autism or not, it's not like a specific thing, um, criteria that is required. And there's also the neurodiversity network.net, which is more for professional growth, growth in being and professional work, and as well as public speaking and communication groups. Um, you can a good place to go is like social media to check and so on and so forth. And I'm gonna go up here just to go back to the content, the table of content, and take us through the contents or how this relates to. So we're here stopping during your natural being. Next, we're going to try with our lives, which is basically about, it looks at this making a plan with other people, communicating a plan with other people, sharing and support with other people, and um, having like 3 to 7 tribes, um, usually with like one central, 1 or 2, 3 maximum. Key, like your cornerstone tribes, um, your indisputable, like your mutually indispensable tribes. An example being like people they like if they have loose change or spare change, they would put coins the um, in like a jar, and then whenever somebody has a crisis, for example, they would give that jar to another member of their Jewish community who's in an emergent state. So it's something like that, kind of like the alms and the spirit of community and networking. So you can see after stopping in the Caribbean, we go up to Travel for Life. We look at this having. Um, I don't want to go into much about like only having one group of people, and right now that's um, for the next masterclass. However, you're aware that that is what the next masterclass will cover now. Um, let me check if there's no questions. Um, you, uh, yeah. So I'll put links for some resources. I think I mentioned Dory's on a good company, neurodiversitynetwork.net. There's so many more. If you have any specific requests for personal, interpersonal, or professional being and development in uh, same personal, interpersonal, professional being growing, then write it down in the comments, and then I will most likely DM you. So just put the request in the comments, and then if there's enough people who request the same thing, then um, I will share it in the private Facebook group, and I will DM you directly in response for reasons of um, understanding more about where you're coming from and why, and um, for privacy and safety. That's the simplest safeguarding people. The simplest way to explain it. Um, so yeah, there doesn't seem to be any questions. I know today is like it's oh, I need to edit, yeah, everything. I know today it was a bit like lots of technical things happening. We made it though. Just trying to think if there's anything else. If anybody wants to see, okay, yeah, we're gonna do the questions for the last bit. Um, I want to share a. Who lived first? I want to share a story, and after the workbook, the question. Questions are really simple. That's why I said it's only one page. This is the first edition. Bear this in mind. This is the first edition of the workbook. What might happen is as I go through the guidebook editing and get into the questions, they've moved. But yeah, as you can see when I take notes from the guidebook. Um, as I go through editing different parts of the book, I just like if I've done some prompts or exercises with clients, or I also do like how do you explain it? So clients at different levels, and in groups or one on one. Then, if I see that something is important enough to be included in the workbook, I amend the workbook and add to it. So, action time. Yes. Uh, it's very simple. I remember in the beginning, we you answered why, how, what, when I'm in my natural way of being. Um, it feels like, looks like, it seems like. So we did that little short exercise about you exploring your natural way of being, just to open up your mind to its possibility. Like, don't think about money being an issue, time being an issue, other people being an issue, whatever commitment um, being an issue when you write down about your natural way of being. Um, yeah, you're just taking an inventory of what is natural for you. And as before, when I asked the question, the personal, professional, and interpersonal aspects of uh, being, you might have not seen or considered doing the exercise in that way. So, as this chapter specifically focuses on not hindering our natural being, as well as distressing and empowering our natural being, and embracing our natural being. Um, the for this part, we've looked at the foundation. Like I said, the cement holding the bricks all together, which is to stop hindering our natural way of being. In the guidebook, it talks about more on the confidence and embracing your natural way of being, and distressing and empowering your natural way of being. Um, for this masterclass, I've just focused on the one because I didn't want to throw everything. I didn't want to overwhelm with the questions and the different exercises and action items, and it's good to just focus on one, which is why I also broke up the strengths and superpowers um, masterclass and the natural way of being masterclass. I was going to do it as one, and then I was like, no, let's be reasonable, let's be sensible. So I read the action items as you can see in front. So just think of my natural way of being, the different ways that your natural way of being have been hindered. Using the examples, maybe take a screenshot, but I'll share the documents in the group, and definitely via email for those whom it's applicable for. For now, what I do recommend is literally buy a separate journal um, for these masterclasses, and to write the date, the number of the masterclass. So this is the second one, um, and like any relevant information. But have it like a separate book for it. I do have the journals, which I'll send it to you on April the 2nd. Apologies for not being able to send it earlier. Just I was living in a place with no internet. um, so there were things that I could not update, and no electricity either, actually. And I've um, been able to, now I'm somewhere where there is consistent internet. um, I've been able to look and confirm dates for certain things. Nothing is certain. Uh, yeah, so we look at personal for the action items, a personal way, personal, your personal natural way of being, and how they're being hindered. So let's like three. You don't, if you want to write more, that is good. You can, but I wouldn't go more than seven. Um, it's a good exercise to do, to write more as well, but three minimum. Three for professional, three for interpersonal. So an example would be like, for me, and I talk about this in terms of development. One of my natural ways of being, in terms of context, my physical body. I am Tanzanian. I am a black female neurodivergent, um, and I need more sun. My melanin requires a higher concentration of vitamin D3 and K2 than maybe taking supplements will. So what I do, to the best of my abilities, in winter in the UK, I go to somewhere where there's more sun. I have a UV lamp actually, a sun. I can't remember the name of the brand or label. I'll put it in the comments. But this is taking context into account and considering my health, my ability to work and be functional and um, process information. I did mention in the last masterclass there was a question about supplements. Alexandra asked. Um, Vitamin D3 and K2 are also being important for neurodivergence because it helps with so many different neurological processes as well as other systems in the body. There are also some homeopathic remedies that I highly recommend. Um, I will be able to, I have like, yeah, from April the 2nd, or I will ask an assistant. I will be able to do the fun behind the scenes, coming back to edit. I'll just tag people as I do it so they know um, that answers have been put in writing. What else? Um, yeah, so any questions you ask here as well will be answered and I'll tag you in. So to stop hindering my natural way of being, I will. So in my example, I was talking about my personal being context, um, also my interpersonal and professional, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just put it in the personal. I go away um, somewhere where there's more sun for the vitamin D3. There's also a thing to do with context, environment, situation, and location, which goes into astrocartography and how people thrive more in different environments. Um, I talk about that in the guidebook. I've not put it here in this masterclass. Um, just to keep it simple, this is introductory. We don't need to. We don't need to. One day I might do an intensive, um, or like a 2 week intensive with the master classes, and then we'll get into the gritty parts. Um, yeah. So um, interpersonal natural way of being for me, or a way that my interpersonal natural way of being um, is hindered. I'm just giving examples for you, for like if you're contemplating what to plan. A way that my interpersonal natural way of being is hindered. Say for some, it's getting better now, obviously because I'm actively working on it. Um, for my for so alexithymia is something I struggle with, as well as communication. Not just communicate my feelings, but putting things into words verbally, which is uh, in a fluent way. And I started in, I can't remember when I started. It was before February, but I became active in February in attending a public speaking and communication group, um, as well as doing things like keeping an emotions log and being aware of um, where I am in my body and what that might mean. So this is an interpersonal natural way that is being hindered. I'm not saying alexithymia is what hinders my natural way of being. I think it's more to do with the egoic interpretations, the cues, say like my upbringing, kind of like beliefs and cues, I would say, is here. So the courage and the cues for interpersonal natural way of being. And I also ask for help when I need it, or I express that I'm sorry, I'm just having a hard time processing something. Like, you know, I don't I don't take it as personally as I used to when I'm interacting with other people, communicating with other people. When my brain just freezes, I can pause and say, can I just have a moment to collect my thoughts, or to say, um, it's not personal, like it's not a personal thing. I am just having a hard time to process something. I'm not deliberately trying to be difficult, and then it's really the onus is on the other person to respond. And I've been clear with my where I'm at and my side of this. So to stop hindering my natural ways of being, I will. So I do things for emotional regulation, exercises, supplements. What I didn't mention with supplements, because I don't really consider, they're more nutraceuticals. Homeopathic remedies, so chamomilla is really helpful for me. next one with her ignition. I'll also write those down when I write them down, Alexandra. I remember. And anybody else who's interested in supplements. And then professionally, ways that I hinder my professional natural ways of being. So naturally, I very much like systems and routines and order. And for me to not have a system or routine or order when I'm working is a way that I hinder my natural being because I like systems and routines and order. Being conscious of that, I keep spreadsheets of my time, or I write in a notebook my time. I keep my numbers. I write my numbers for personal expenses. I write my number for professional expenses. I can also have like a what do you call it? My brain can try and process everything at once and try to like um, do everything at once and not see the limits and boundaries of life and what can or cannot be done. And for that, so that's something that hinders my natural way of being. Um, for that, I do commitment inventories and I take beliefs inventories to kind of like analyze like I have this belief. Is it how closely does this align with what is actually happening? So that's professionally. It can be applied personally and interpersonally as well with commitment and belief inventories. So those are just some verbal examples for the workbook. And I ask ask if there are any questions. I'm not seeing any, so I think this is. I can close the workshop here. Oh, there are comments. Oh, okay. Right. And, I like the idea behind the handwriting. I do like, however, issues with handwriting are common for us. Yes. So, uh, I was able to. Um, you can use both. Um, in terms of it being better or not, I would work on how important it is. So, for example, I like to uh, uh, my hand. Like I like to connect manually. However, I do have like Note, which is a project management tool, and Trello as well, and Obsidian. Um, where it's like a dashboard where I can put like all my notes and my thoughts and dump them. And sometimes it's quicker for me to type, definitely with dyspraxia because of the whole holding a pen situation. Do what works. Um, I that so this is how I've done for years, and I know one other client who, um, if for example dyspraxia gets in the way with writing, you can also record. I have lots of audio recordings. Um, so speech to text. Um, so you record. I was speaking with someone recently who have remained on a similar note, but geez. Speech to text. For some people, the voice is very strong and allows them to connect with their bodies, and they learn like auditory learners as well, or high. They have a high kinesthetic auditory learn style, uh, and it might be effective for in that case to record speech to text still, as long as the words they speak with their bodies, and it's similar thing like what you write resonates with your bodies is a feel to it. Um, and another way is so I also do video journals, and so sound journals, audio journals, and video journals because I know that for me writing takes a long time. Uh, so If you are comfortable with and want to experiment with doing video journals, or working through the workbook in a mat, and you have assistive technologies that help to convert audio, speech to text, video, also speech to text, but audio to text, and way around to text to speech. It's also it helps to listen to yourself. I don't always go back and listen to everything I record if I haven't converted it to speech. But there are some things I make a note of I want to listen to, and I set a reminder for it to. And even if I don't listen to all of it, because I'm working on something I want to review where I was, by set it prompts me to take that to at least reflect on what it is that I've written. It's perfectly fine to type and then read it out loud to yourself or to somebody else if you want to practice. There's certain exercises that I get. We it's kind of like just thought therapy where you speak with an empty chair, and it's like doing imagining somebody there. So you can also ask a friend or put stuff down there. Um, and if you want to explore if that for you, I that's something that is an option to do. I hope that answers your question because I feel like it takes me also forever to write when I do write. Um, yeah. So next question is, or next comment, I should say. Um, we have. Oh, do recordings. Yeah, talking to, but yeah, that I think I've literally stayed sane because I've been able to talk to myself and um, to I sometimes when I'm like the things that happen, all the things that are happening, I hear this spirit that tells me to use my voice and not to stay silent. Just in an environment that didn't advocate to use our voice. Um, they didn't support us in finding nurturing our voice. So like they call dysfunctional family dynamic. Um, and sometimes I feel because it's such a mess, I don't want to speak into this perfect. And first, the idea, like I was saying, process over progress over perfection. The idea of perfection is not useful. Um, work from when, especially when we're speaking about things that are, in some sense, are in the terms of like there is no one perfect way. There are many ways. Um, it's more about choice and the idea of progress. Like a plan uh, behind that progress allows for the you have a direction or an aim. So I'm not just speaking because I want to take up the oxygen. But I have like a specific aim with like when you're doing the workbook or journaling exercises, um, you're answering specific questions with an aim in mind. So, and it's very powerful to other people um, if you are open to that, which is the whole visibility, accountability, and uh, that something doesn't have as much power as you sometimes give it, especially like lies and false beliefs. Um, especially when they strengthen numbers, but qualitative. They strengthen the quality of spirit of uh, working through, say, like um, I'm working through these workbook exercise journal prompts, and somebody else is working through exercise journal prompts, and somebody else is working through, and you might not have ever spoken with each other. Um, it's kind of it's Rupert Sheldrake, morphogenic uh, field. So when you get there, the time, yeah. uh, I'll do it. Um, uh, if they are watching, um, yeah. So it's check times. Um, thank you so much. Replay. Um, yeah, the replay. Thank you for the post about the net master about books. Let me just rewind. I would say uh, that's I, other updates I'm working on, and they are available for, and I'm really excited. Oh, it's breaking up. Yes, actually, I can. I'm just finishing up to explain. Um, I don't know if it's working screen. I shared it on the lines and sharing. Oh, there is the loading 100% workbook. The next master drive up your live screen and no, the journal. I would I did a video before. If you are interested in this is the point that I want to make. So this class the mastermind for $7. Chance to diagnosed guide work. You do get private Facebook group support with live you get the weekly planner as well as the Destress during lives eventually into a time I would well yeah I would like to go to connect to help, so these are like free it might be 6 months, it might be nice. I'm just one. I know that like in future the format will. Well, I'm also making a note on that so that you're aware. I don't know how that is still breaking up. It seems to have frozen, but signing out. This one says it's fine. This technology. Um, yes. Thank you so much, everybody, and take will this again. We're closing. Okay. Uh, and we've been and our energies for I will when times to be confirmed. Have a good night. Take care.